most welcome to Historiespanarna, History Reconnaissance. And D-Day 1942, the Allied invasion of Northwest Africa. In the beginning of November 1942, the forces of the British Empire defeated the Germans and Italians at El Alamein. In the final days of the battle that ended in an Allied victory, a huge armada was already on its way to deal yet another deadly blow to the Axis forces in North Africa. So, join us for the story of the so-called Second Front, the Allied invasion of Northwest Africa in November 1942, and watch the soldiers of Eisenhower and Patton land and advance into Morocco and Algeria. And please, subscribe to our channel and join us on our continuing historical journey. At the same time as the Allied Armada headed for Northwest Africa, the Second Battle of El Alamein took place, a battle involving 300,000 men and 1,500 tanks. It's considered to be one of the turning points of World War II.
For Cairo's reaction and the news there, we take you now to CBS Cairo, Winston Burdett reporting.
It's all over but the shouting on this side of Libya. In the battle that knocked him out of Egypt, Rommel is believed to have lost at least 3/5 of his troops. The Axis armies crumbled as they fled, dropping huge pieces all the way to the border, jettisoning arms and men, abandoning whole units, especially Italian units, leaving hundreds of guns and tanks behind them and thousands of trucks, and half a dozen valuable headquarters and many, many thousand dead.
The American invasion forces made landings at Oran and Algiers on the north coast of French North Africa and somewhere on the west coast. These first official details came in a War Department communique released about an hour ago, which listed the generals commanding the American units under Commander-in-Chief Lieutenant General Ike Eisenhower. Among the commands are Brigadier General Jimmy Doolittle for air and one of America's foremost tank experts, Major General George S. Patton, commanding the forces landing on the west coast, an indication that formidable armored units spearhead our attacks.
Step on it, Yank. The Nazis have airports in Sicily, and they're only an hour away.
For more than a week, a mighty fleet with hundreds of ships, transports, destroyers, battleships and aircraft carriers had been on their way from the British Isles and across the Atlantic, and now these convoys converged to simultaneously seize the key ports and airports in Morocco and Algeria, targeting Casablanca, Oran and Algiers. Successful completion of these operations was to be followed by an eastwards advance into Tunisia. The Western Task Force, with Major General George S. Patton in command, consisted of the U.S. 3rd and 9th Infantry Divisions and 2 battalions from the U.S. 2nd Armored Division, 35,000 troops in a convoy of over 100 ships, transported directly from the United States. The Center Task Force included U.S. 2nd Battalion, 509th Parachute Infantry Regiment, the U.S. 1st Infantry Division, and the U.S. 1st Armored Division, total 18,500 troops. They sailed directly from the United Kingdom. The Eastern Task Force consisted of a brigade from the British 78th and the US 34th Infantry Divisions, along with 2 British commando units, together with the RAF Regiment, providing 5 squadrons of infantry and 5 light anti-aircraft flights, totaling 20,000 troops.
The Vichy radio supplied some details of the landings on the west coast. They say that bridgeheads have been established both north and south of Casablanca, at Rabat in the north and at Safi in the south, and from the French reports it's apparent that landing operations of a major scale are going on. Vichy also confirmed the landings on the north coast at Oran and Algiers. The German radio, quoting Spanish sources, reports that additional Allied fleet and transport units left Gibraltar today. There can be little doubt that our invasion forces are large. The Vichy radio estimates that we have thrown 140,000 men into the operation and adds that British divisions are already on the way to reinforce us.
keeping transportation arteries open is of primary importance. French soldiers guard all roads, bridges, and strategic points.
When the Americans and British began planning for an invasion of North Africa, it was estimated that it would require 34 trains a day to move 5,000 tons a month from the ports of debarkation at Casablanca, Oran and Algiers to keep the Allied forces supplied. The Military Railroad Service, MRS, deployed 5 operating and 2 shop battalions to keep the required supplies moving. The first railway operating battalion, the 727th, arrived in Africa in December 1942. Railroading in North Africa proved to be a challenge. Trains were operated by British, French and American crews, assisted by Arab civilians. With a variety of languages among the railroaders, the crews often used hand signals, although that was not always a solution. Despite the difficulties, the MRS was moving about 90,000 tons of freight a week by June 1943. At its peak, the MRS operated 1,905 miles of railway in North Africa. The US 12th Air Force was to be the Army Air Force's air component of Operation Torch in 1942. 12th Air Force initially moved to England for training, then participated in the invasion of North Africa. It was engaged in tactical operations for the remainder of the war in the Mediterranean. At first, 12th Air Force contained both strategic heavy bombardment groups and tactical light and medium bombardment, fighter bomber and fighter groups. Based in French Morocco and Algeria after Operation Torch, the 12th prioritized cooperation with the Royal Air Force, which had been fighting in North Africa for 2 years. With its logistical system disrupted, the German Afrika Korps was forced to retreat westward. The British RAF and the US AAF pounded German and Italian airfields daily to prevent the Axis from employing its own air power. Once the enemy had retreated beyond an airfield, RAF and AAF units moved in to occupy it. By the end of 1943, Axis forces had been pushed back more than 1,000 miles to the Tunisian frontier. Cooperating with the RAF, the AAF used every type of airplane available: P-38s, P-39s, P-40s, Spitfires, B-17s, B-24s, B-25s, V-26 and A-20s, you name it. Providing direct support for the ground forces and bombing Axis ports, ship convoys and supply depots. In March 1943, the Germans were using 500 planes to carry reinforcements from Italy to Tunisia. On April 5th, the AAF began a campaign to cripple this lifeline. By nightfall, 200 enemy airplanes had been destroyed. The Axis losses continued, and the AAF and the RAF won supremacy in the air, and early in May, German resistance on the ground began to collapse. The Americans surrounded the port of Casablanca by 10 November, and the city surrendered an hour before the final assault was due to take place. Casablanca was the principal French Atlantic naval base after German occupation of the European coast. The US 1st Ranger Battalion landed east of Oran and quickly captured the shore battery. The Vichy French naval fleet broke from the harbor and attacked the Allied invasion fleet, but its ships were all sunk or driven ashore. Bombardment by the British battleships brought about Oran's surrender on 10th of November. Torch was the first major airborne assault carried out by the United States. The 2nd Battalion, 509th Parachute Infantry Regiment, aboard 39 C-47 Dakotas, flew all the way from Cornwall in England over Spain to drop near Oran and capture airfields. One effect of Torch was that the Germans and Italians immediately occupied southern France, and the German army moved to seize the French fleet in the port of Toulon from 10 November. The naval strength of the Axis in the Mediterranean would have been greatly increased if the Germans had succeeded in seizing the French ships, but every major ship was scuttled at the dock by the French navy before the Germans could take them. After consolidating in Algeria, the Allies began the Tunisia campaign, and came to within 40 miles of Tunis before a counterattack thrust them back. The setbacks at Kasserine forced the Allies to consolidate their forces, strengthen their lines of communication before renewing their offensive. The 1st and 8th Armies attacked again in April 1943. Hard fighting followed, but the Allies cut off the Germans and Italians from support by naval and air forces between Tunisia and Sicily. By 13 May, the Axis forces in Tunisia had surrendered, opening the way for the Allied invasion of Sicily in July. And finally, the invasion in the papers and newsreels.
That's all, folks. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.